If you're into movie reviews, movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, do you ask? I am The Wiz. Welcome to the new rebranding of the channel and the podcast. This will be the first thing after the introduction you're probably going to hear regarding the rebranding. Like I've said in the intro, not much is really changing on the movie side. I'm going to still continue to do reviews, but I'm probably going to add more lists and discussion topics as well as time goes on. So if you're looking forward to all that stuff, you've come to the right place, and thank you for joining me. Today, we are going to conclude this week in Pride Month, and I'm going to review the 2019 film Portrait of a Lady on Fire, starring Adele Haenel and Naomi Merlant, directed by Celine Sciamma. I am sorry if I'm butchering all those names. I'm terrible in French, so bear with me on that. This won a lot of awards and notoriety throughout the time it came out. It won Best Screenplay at Cannes that year. A lot of top 10 lists had this movie as well, and a lot of chatter about this possibly getting Oscar nominations around the time it came out, but I believe it was ineligible. That's why it never got any nominations, which kind of sad when that happens. I don't understand the eligibility sometimes with the Oscars, but that does seem to happen, especially for foreign language films. That is sad on there. But again, this is an LGBTQ film I've wanted to watch for a long time. This is one of the few movies that are new movies that came to the Criterion Collection. And right there when that happens, it's like, oh, I got to pay attention to that. Because then if the Criterion Collection really wanted it, then there must be something about it that's worthwhile. Are there other movies like Triangle of Sadness got in recently, Worst Woman in the World, that also, or Worst Person in the World, I should say, that also got in. So when that happens, I pay attention and say, okay, that's something I have to check out then. And I'm glad I was able to check it out now. So why don't I get into the review of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, starring Adele Haenel and Naomi Merlant, directed by Celine Sciamma. I'm going to say right now, I'm not doing a spoiler section. I might spoil a little bit here and there throughout the film, throughout the review. So if you're sensitive to that, you might want to skip it. Otherwise, here I go. So when I heard about this film, I heard them mostly through Twitter. People were adoring this movie, saying, oh, it's one of the best LGBTQ films ever. It's so romantic, it's this and that. And I do agree to a certain extent that it's a very romantic film, and it's done pretty well. And that's really all I can say about that. It's a very well-made movie. I do like movies that are more slow and deliberate, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire is definitely one of those movies. It really is a slow burn movie where it asks you to pay close attention as the film goes on to get the nuances of what's happening. I'll be honest, in the first 40 minutes of the film, I was like, I don't see how this is a lesbian movie. I was like, what am I missing? And it's because the movie is pretty subtle about what's going on in the movie. Of course, a certain thing happens in the film, and then you're like, oh, yeah, it is. So that's good. But I do like the deliberateness and the slowness that the movie has when going through the film. It seems more, maybe not realistic, but more authentic. And then in another sense, it also feels like it's putting more emphasis on the characters than the actions of which the characters have, which I actually like those types of films. I want to get into the performances first. I think the two main leads who play Marianne and Heloise, which is Naomi Merlant and Adele Haenel. They are very good in this, but I have to particularly say that Adele Haenel is actually very good in this. I thought she played the character Heloise really well. She is obviously portrayed as the object of affection in this movie, but you instantly see as to why, not only the mysteriousness of her in the beginning of the movie, but as you get to know her throughout, you get to definitely see why someone like Marianne is really into this person. And it felt really believable as the movie was going on. And the romance as well felt very believable too. The thing that I think a lot of films that are LGBTQ based, that they seem to have a weakness, especially nowadays, is that when they go into the love story, they seem to just go into it saying, oh, they're just lesbians. That's it. But they don't get into what attracts the person to the other person very well. Or they dismiss it as, oh, it's a lust thing. Or it's just like, oh, it just happens to happen. Or they have a look in their eye and it's just like instant magnetism. And they don't get into more in-depth things or more like how the relationship developed. And I think that's a strength that Portrait of a Lady on Fire has, where the characters seem to grow instead of just instant attraction, which there are some movies that are good that way, and I understand that. But I do prefer movies that have more depth to them, and this movie has the added depth that's needed that makes it a much more interesting film to watch. So I definitely appreciated that the romance had more depth and substance to it than I would say most romance films tend to not have. So I was really appreciative of that. This won Best Screenplay at Cannes, and it's easy to see why. It's not a straightforward film by any certain... Well, it kind of is, but they do deviate. But when they deviate, it makes sense as to why they're doing it. Either it adds to the somberness of the movie. It really feels well in the direction that they're going in this. So there is a subplot in the movie about a maid who has to get an abortion. And you would think that would feel odd in a romance film. But they make it work pretty well in this. They make it not feel odd that this movie about unrequited love for some reason has an abortion scene. And it actually worked in this movie better than I thought it was going to. When this was starting to happen, this scene with the maid and having to get an abortion, I thought it was going to feel really odd throughout the entire film, but it actually fit pretty well. So I was actually pleasantly surprised with that. It doesn't hurt the film very well, but it doesn't really enhance it very well. In my eyes, it might for some. To me, when I watched it, and this is a criticism I hear from some people who've seen it as to why that was in there, I think it just adds to the closeness of the characters and how they become close. Instead of finding something contrived, they add something that is more not human. Well, I guess humane, that they want to help the maid. But it goes to show, I think, to both characters that they are both caring people despite being from different backgrounds. So I think that actually worked in its favor very well in this. And the actress, who is Lulana Bejrani, oh my god, I am so bad with these names. She did a great performance as Sophie as well in this. The direction, the way the film looks, the way it's shot, actually is really good. I was actually surprised by that too. They shoot in a lot of close-ups or medium shots. There's not a lot of wide sweeping vistas in this movie, which I'm a little surprised because the movies that are set in this time period usually have that. But the closeness and the way it's shot adds to the intimacy of the relationship and what's going on in the movies, and it fits really well in this, I think. If this had a lot more wide sweeping shots, I think it would have felt odd in this movie, but in this case, the way they shot it actually was very well done. I thought the way it was shot and the way it looks was really good, especially in the darker scenes, such as in the fire pit scene. And the later scene, when it comes to Heloise's ghost, I would say, minor spoiler there, would show in those scenes. I thought those scenes were actually pretty well done. I'm going to get into something outside of the movie that I have to criticize for how I watched it. So this is not about the movie itself. It's about where I watched it. I had to watch this on Hulu because I have a subscription, and I only get the ad-rated version. So right there, I was already like, oh, crap, this is going to have ads. And unfortunately, this movie had ads. So I was like, oh, great. That's fucking great. So I was already not happy with that. I'm going to get past that. I've said my piece on ads with movies. There shouldn't be any. But anyway, one criticism I have for Hulu specifically when watching movies is if there isn't credits rolling, don't minimize the damn film, please. I was at the tail end of the movie, and at the end of the movie, what is a scene where Heloise is at an opera, watching and listening to something, and there's a very distinct and powerful reaction that she has to what she's watching. But if you watch this on Hulu, before you can even see that scene, it minimizes, says, hey, do you want to watch this? I'm like, the movie's not fucking done. What are you doing? I hate when these services do that. Like, I understand if credits are rolling, then do it. Fine. Like, I'm perfectly okay with that. But if there is still film going on and there is no credits, then at that point, the movie is not fucking over. So, goddamn it, it really annoyed me. Let me just get that off my chest. Sorry. Final thoughts on Portrait of a Lady on Fire. The things I've been hearing about this are correct. This is a really good movie. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm not going to call it one of the best movies I've ever seen. I think that's a little overboard. But it definitely is an effective romance movie that I think for Pride Month, if you have not been able to check this out, I would say check it out. It actually is really good. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I'm not going to give it 4. This is something that I probably will return to at another point in time. But yeah, definitely 3.5 stars for Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Well, that is it, guys. This is the end of this review for Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Sundays, when I do these types of reviews, it's either going to be a review, a list, or an essay. It can be either one. I'm not going to say right away what they are, so this is going to be like the Sunday extra that you're going to get for the podcast. So look forward to that as time goes on. Well, I am glad that you came by to watch and listen to this. As always, I am The Wiz, and I will hear from you next time. Bye.